So little, notice but you just clean up the single one. What I watch, fly home, buddy. So little, notice but you never know you're upset. You don't see I'm back. So little, notice but you just clean up the single one. What I watch, fly home, buddy. So little, notice but you never know you're upset.
Hey guys, today I want to make a different type of video.
A good one?
It's still related to games, but I want to take a rather feminist approach.
No. Why would you take a perfectly good approach? Just a gamer who's playing games and enjoying games and trying to make it political and try to push this agenda. Why would you want to take a game like this and look through it, voluntarily look through it through this awful lens?
The game I'm talking about is Sony's upcoming RPG Horizon Zero Dawn.
Well, this is a world where Fallout 4 is an RPG, so sure, Horizon Zero Dawn is an RPG. As is Call of Duty. And Minesweeper.
I've seen plenty of comments on Horizon Zero Dawn videos of people saying that they don't want to play the game because it has a female protagonist.
Oh, well, there's the triggering. I'm extremely skeptical of this claim of yours. Let me go and check for myself. So, I went to the Horizon Zero Dawn E3 2015 trailer, and I began looking. And looking, searching high and low, trying to find all these people who were saying, I'm not going to play this game because the protagonist is a female. I scrolled, I loaded comments, I Control F find female, but alas, I could not find a single one. I looked, I couldn't find any. Eventually, I just gave up. It makes me think, if I couldn't find them and I was trying to find them, you certainly don't see them at a first glance, and you certainly don't see them with just casual browsing. How did you find all these comments? Or did you go into this perhaps with a mindset of, surely there are people who think like this, I have to go out and I have to find all these people, because that will feed into my point. So yeah, I'm certain there are some gamers out there who will not play Horizon Zero Dawn because you play as a woman's, but really, how many are those people? I mean, how many is many? How few is few? I would imagine that based on what I've seen, and based on what I know about gamers, and based on the gamers that I've played with my life, it doesn't matter to them. And I would reckon the number of people who won't play this game for that reason is minuscule, and it doesn't have any real impact on the sales of the game. Do you think a game like this would be published and developed with a female protagonist if it really did mean and noticeable loss in sales?
I want to ask you a question. What kind of difference does it make if the protagonist is a woman or a man? Exactly, none at all.
Well, I mean, actually there is in a lot of games. In some games there is a difference and there are reasons why you would pick one over the other. In most games the change is, it's just aesthetic. People want to look at a woman, people want to look at a man, they want to play as a woman, they want to play as a man. It doesn't matter, it's based on looks, but there are some games like Mass Effect, for instance, where your gender can determine your romances. I mean, I can't bone Grunt either way, which is a fucking travesty, BioWare. What the fuck? He has the finest ass on the Citadel. But if I was to pick a character like Garrus, for instance, as the person I wanted to romance, I would have to pick a female shepherd in order to have that option. Garrus is strictly interested in the ladies. In Mass Effect 1, or as I like to call it, the best one, there's a section in the game where you must choose to sacrifice one of your crew members. Unfortunately, one of the huge problems of this decision, in one sense of the word, is that a lot of the times people are trying to romance one of these two people, and so the decision will fall squarely on not necessarily which one do I like the best, or which one would be more useful to the mission or as a character, but which one am I currently attempting to fuck? If you're attempting to romance Ashley, you understand that dying in a nuclear explosion will make vaginal intercourse slightly more difficult. Take, for example, Dragon Ball Xenoverse, where there is a statistical difference between males and females. And Mountain Blade Warband, again, statistical reasons why it would be disadvantageous to be a female. It's a historical game, after all. You need more renown, for instance, to join with groups. Your statistics are different. Many of the forums and threads that I've gone to discuss the differences between males and females say it's a disadvantage to be a woman, which makes sense in a Mount and Blade game that takes place in the past. There are other games, though, where it's a narrative difference. Imagine, for instance, The Witcher, where you played as a woman. Just like with Mount and Blade Warband, men and women were not treated equally back in the day. You see, sexual dimorphism is a thing. Now, in The Witcher, you play as Geralt, who is a male, and as a result, people treat you as a male, granted, an outsider and a mutant and a freak in many circumstances, but as a male. If you were playing as a woman, for instance, people would think of you in a different way. People would probably try to take advantage of you in ways they wouldn't do to Geralt. Sexism is a heavy focus in this game, just like racism and bigotry is, because it's the olden days, and that's how people were for the most part. Well, at least many of them were. There's an entire section of the game that takes place on the islands of Skellige where you have to choose between who should be the next king, and your choices are a dude and a chick who are related. And if you go with the chick, the fact that she is a woman comes into play very often. Her gender is literally of narrative importance. Normally in games, though, there is no actual difference. Statistically, it's just an aesthetic change. It's done just to give people an option. In Skyrim, for instance, males and females are treated equally, even unrealistically so. Same thing with Guild Wars 2 or World of Warcraft, things of that like.
The controls and the gameplay will still be the same. If you decide to reject a franchise because of a certain gender, there is no other way than to call you sexist.
That's not necessarily true. For instance, if you have a realistic game that unrealistically portrays a protagonist as a certain gender, then that would be a reason not to buy it if you're looking for immersion. For instance, if you were playing a game where your character is a young squire in medieval Europe training to be a knight, but that character was a little girl, then if you're looking for immersion in that kind of a world or an environment, you might not pick up the game because that is obviously not accurate and it would obviously not be immersive. Granted, it wouldn't bother a lot of people. It probably wouldn't bother me at all. But for some people, that's the case because some people are different and they think some things in games are more important than others. The movie Mulan, for instance, by Disney, excellent movie that we're all aware of, it wouldn't exactly be the same if Mulan was a man. Because part of the whole point of the movie is that she's a woman who's doing man things. It shows that women are capable of great things just like men are. And in the sense of a game, perhaps having diversity for diversity's sake when it's out of place, that might be a reason people feel to not support the game, especially if they feel it tries to promote a political agenda. Kinda like certain YouTube videos about feminism and certain upcoming PlayStation games.
There are plenty of great games that have a female protagonist like Clem in The Walking Dead, Ripley in Alien Isolation, Lara Croft in Tomb Raider.
But it's important to also note with those examples that there's nothing about, for instance, Alien Isolation's Ripley or Tomb Raider's Lara Croft. It is not the womanness of these characters, it's not their femininity that gives them their traits, it's them as people. Their gender could be swapped with no real changes to the gameplay or the narrative.
Or Max and Chloe in Life is Strange, only to name a few.
And it's important to note also that these games are successful games, despite their protagonist's gender. Something to keep in mind.
The difference, however, between a game like Tomb Raider and Horizon Zero Dawn is that Aloy is not portrayed as a sexy and stunningly beautiful woman. It's undeniable that the focus on creating Lara Croft is to make her look as sexy as possible.
Yeah, very possibly. And there's nothing wrong with that, if you're implying that there is. I don't know if you are, but if you do think that there's something wrong with that, there's not. The same thing is done to male protagonists. Look at Nathan Drake and Chris Redfield, the list goes on and on and on. Male protagonists are also very handsome. They're sexualized. It's not bad that protagonists in video games are made to be beautiful or made to be sexy. That's not an issue. That doesn't change who they are, or their character traits, or their personalities. It's also important to note that these are just pixels on a screen. Don't forget that. Don't get lost in the idea that these are people.
This is not the case with Aloy. I don't mean to say that she looks ugly, but because she truly doesn't. Aloy's features are more down to earth. She looks like an ordinary girl next door.
Next door? Holy shit, where do you live? I'm gonna pack my bags right now and move over there if that's what the people next door look like where you are. Damn.
If a character has a great personality and the game is brilliant on its own, there is no need to over-sexualize.
Well, yes, there's no need. You don't need to have someone look very attractive or over sexualized. Yeah, but with all things being equal, if you have to stare at someone's ass for hours and hours on end, I would rather stare at a really nice ass. And most people would rather see it on the box art, and most people would just rather continually look at an attractive person and an attractive face instead of an ugly one. Everything about a character in a video game's traits are arbitrary. The designers create her and they mold her and sculpt her out of the pixels on the screen. And when you can choose everything about a character, I mean, wouldn't you want to make them attractive looking?
This of course speaks in favor for Horizon Zero Dawn. The developers didn't have to portray Aloy as a sexual object to sell the game.
Well, the people who made Tomb Raider don't have to portray Lara Croft as a sexual object in order to sell the game either. Let's take a look at Tomb Raider 2, for instance. One of my favorite games of all time. One of my favorite games of all time. You see, my dad, he had an old-ass Mac computer, and it ran some games, Descent 2, Terminal Velocity, it ran Tomb Raider Gold, it ran Tomb Raider 2, right? Just looking at this screen right here is giving me those nostalgic chills, or I have to urinate. Oh my god, beating that game as a kid is one of the most proud moments of my life. That game was nothing to scoff at. I felt good about beating that game. But Tomb Raider 2, fantastic video game. And you might think, oh look, she's totally super sexualized here at the main menu. And then you boot up the actual game, and then you see Lara Croft in the game. I mean, it's not my proudest wank.
A problem, of course, is that most games nowadays have a male lead.
Wait, what?
A problem, of course, is that most games nowadays have a male lead.
What? It's a problem. This is a problem, she says. It's a problem in video games. There are too many male protagonists. I asked you on Twitter about this very blatant and very direct comment that you made on the video on Twitter. I asked, why is it a problem that most games have a male lead when most consumers of hardcore video games are male? It's not a problem, you said, but I'd like to see more diversity in the gaming industry. You're sending me mixed signals here. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. At the beginning of this video, you said that you were going to take a
feminist approach.
Because when it comes to this feminist approach of yours, I'm more inclined to believe you the first time instead of when you're actually confronted about the things that you say on Twitter. When it comes to having a feminist approach, yeah, it is a problem for feminists that there are too many male leads in video games. And don't give me all of that bullshit. I know you will. I know you'll say, but Rags, the dictionary definition of feminism is da-da-da-da-da. The dictionary says that feminism is about equality of the genders. It's about fairness of the genders. I'm not really concerned right now what Webster tells me. I'm concerned with the things that I see feminists saying. For instance, what the Bible says is one thing, what Christians do is another thing. What the Quran says is one thing, what Muslims do is another thing. You know, a certain quote comes to mind. People don't have ideologies. Ideologies have people. So beware of ideologies, lest you become the property of one. Wasn't that a lovely tangent? P.S. Please notice me undoomed. This is my desperate cry for attention.
Most protagonists are white and handsome-looking men.
Yeah, that's because Western civilization is predominantly white. You know how all those South Korean movies have a bunch of Koreans in them? It's the same thing. My favorite movie of all time has no white people in it, and I wouldn't dare go to the director and say, but I'm not represented because my skin color. I don't actually talk like that. Why did I make that voice? I'm not putting that in the video. It's gonna be scrubbed.
There are so much more races and ethnicities. It's really a shame that we don't often get to see a more diverse spectrum of characters.
Are you crazy? Video gaming has an insanely diverse cast of characters. Not just protagonists, but environments you play in, people that you interact with. How many games give you the option to choose your own gender, for instance? According to Feminist Frequency, of all people, based on their E3 2015 report on the video games presented and shown there, 46% of all of their games could be played as male or female. The majority of games, it doesn't matter. And it's 32 are solo male and 9% are solo female. You might look at this and you might say, ugh, Feminist Frequency. Don't worry, I did too, but I'm the one editing the video, so I can edit it out. But you might look at this and notice, after you put the bucket down, that a lot of these games let you play as a woman. And while in instances where you cannot change the gender, there is way more male representation than female representation, 32 to 9%, you have to also understand that they're trying to sell products, they are catering to demographics. Just because you play as a male doesn't mean a female can't enjoy it, and I pity you if that's the case. Just in the same way that a man can play a female protagonist and enjoy it just the same. But let's ask ourselves a question here. What will satisfy you feminist types? What will satisfy you? Do you want to see this bar completely, it's not blue, it's like turquoise, completely turquoise, is it cyan? Is that cyan? Is that cyan? Bluish. You want half of that graph to be bluish and the other to be light red? Or pink, as the normies call it. Are you saying there should be quotas? Are you saying that there should be something that forces you to make your game with a protagonist of a certain gender? Because you say that it's a problem. And so what is your remedy to this problem? Why is it a problem? And what will it take in terms of enforcement for this problem of yours to go away? Are you going to have to strip away the freedom of people to make the games they want or to sell to the people they want? Is that what it's going to take? I hope not.
Nevertheless, you shouldn't make a judgment on the game in regard to gender or race. It doesn't matter what gender the protagonist is.
Listen, I'm trying not to get perturbed, okay? But just a second ago, you said it was a problem most games had a male protagonist, specifically white handsome ones. You can't say that and then follow it up with,
you shouldn't make a judgment on the game in regard to gender or race.
Right, to be fair, maybe what you mean is the individual quality of each game's individually should not be determined or prejudged by the gender of their protagonist. But it does sort of send a little bit of a mixed message. If it's a problem for a lot of games to do it, then how come on an individual basis it's not a problem for games to do it? It's a problem that most games have it this way, but if this one game has it, it is, or it, I don't know. I'd pick your brain more, but I can't, because you turned off notifications for everyone except your friends. If you're gonna stand up so much for this feminism stuff, then maybe it doesn't look like the best thing in the world that the moment somebody actually challenges your idea or your opinion, or just asks for more information based on it, that you start ignoring them and then make sure that with your notifications you can't hear their questions. It does give one the impression that maybe your position is not really all that easy to defend.
In games like Fallout or Skyrim, you can customize your character to your own wishes. In these games you decide if you want to be the hero or the villain.
Well, actually, I identify as a villain, and there are way too many games these days where I play as the hero, and so I think games need far more diversity. I need to be able to play as the villain in way more games. I don't feel properly represented.
It's your choice who you want to be. Let's take The Witcher 3 for example. You play as Geralt of Rivia, and your goal is to find your foster daughter Ciri. On the way to finding her, you have to do a lot of quests. How you do them is up to you.
Well, within certain parameters. The Witcher 3 does restrict total freedom so that it can have a certain narrative play out for the sake of the story, and that's not bad, not in its case.
But the choices you make affect the game. Still, you have a path ahead of you that is already determined.
But But you just said...
You cannot decide to abandon Ciri and to live your life happily ever after.
Well, yeah, because Geralt wouldn't be able to live with himself if he did that. That's one of the ideas. He sees her as a daughter. That wouldn't make sense. If he abandoned her, he wouldn't be able to live with the decision that he made.
This is the same with Horizon Zero Dawn. In these games, you play the story of a character, but you don't play your own story.
Well, the idea is that the game is designed to immerse you in the world, so you feel like the character you're playing is you doing the actions, and that it is your story. That's what successful immersion does.
In order to explain now why Horizon Zero Dawn is a feminist game, or rather why Aloy is a feminist, I first want to explain what feminism is.
Well, did I call it or what?
Feminist theory stands for political, economical and social equality between both sexes, men and women.
That sounds like equality of outcomes and not equality of opportunities, and that's no bueno in my book. But again, I've already explained why I don't much care for whatever the dictionary says feminism is. I look at what feminists say and what they do.
Feminism doesn't support the preference of one sex over the other.
This is why I say that the definition and what it is about equality of outcomes and not equality of opportunities or fairness. Because a moment ago, you said that it was a problem that most video games have male protagonists. Games end up this way, and so that is a problem. At least it is for feminists. Feminism clearly prefers women over men. That should be self-evident to anyone who has had their eyes open in the last 5-6 years. Here's an interesting train of thought that might help you to discover just how it works in the real world. Let's take this tweet by feminist academic Christy Winters. That Sargon of Akkad uses cancer to bait people. Vile, vile man. And I think his response to this is something we should all keep in our back pocket whenever we're approached by a feminist, and you want to kind of delve a little deeper into how they consider their personal form of feminism. So is prostate cancer a feminist issue, just out of interest? Now, if every feminist is following the dictionary definition of feminism, then of course prostate cancer is a feminist issue. Because it's about equality, right? Just a thought. Let's get back to the video.
Let's now work with this basic knowledge.
Yeah, that's not basic knowledge.
If you truly believe in these values, you don't care if the protagonist is a man or a woman.
Well, if you believe in the equality of outcomes, yeah, you do. That's why you're the one saying that this game is feminist and the protagonist is a feminist. It's hard for you to, in the same video, say that you shouldn't care and it doesn't matter about the gender of the protagonist, and also say that it's a problem that most protagonists in video games are male.
Actually, you don't even have to be a feminist to feel like this. All you need is common sense. If you really only care about the gender of the protagonist, I can't imagine you care about the game at all.
Well, some might argue that they only care about the protagonist's gender because they do care about the rest of the game.
When I want to buy a game, it's because the story fascinates me. The gameplay looks innovative.
Well, if you really do care about innovative gameplay, then, I mean, why are you buying Horizon Zero Dawn? No, I'm just jerking your chain. It's fine, don't mind. Don't mind me. I'm just trying to be, just being myself.
Well, the graphics look impressive. When picking a game, gender doesn't even play a role to me. It's something I don't even care about.
Well, yeah, but clearly it does, though. You can say it doesn't matter. You can say that you don't care, but, I mean, look, we're listening to your own words here. You clearly do care. You're taking a game that has a female protagonist and you're saying, I'm going to look at this from a feminist perspective, and of course you care. Hell, it's the most important thing, isn't it? Isn't it? You know, from a feminist perspective.
Because it's the overall experience that makes a game great. It's not only about gender. If you say you believe in equality...
Oh, and for the record, I don't believe in gender equality. I mean, normally in passing conversation, colloquially, that's what people mean, that people are equal. But in a realistic sense, no, human beings are not equal. No, two men are equal, two women are not equal. A man and a woman are definitely not equal. They're different. Men and women are different. and I think they deserve to each be looked at in a fair way that isn't necessarily exactly equal.
But you're lacking the ability to empathize with a character of the opposite sex. You're lacking major social values.
Clarity is important. I don't understand what you're actually saying or what words you were using, so we'll have to gloss over that bit. Are you saying like in or lack in? It changes. Whatever, let's move on.
This makes you a hypocrite too. What I really like is that Gorilla wasn't discouraged by these claims.
Well, of course, no company would be. These claims are ridiculous. They're obviously blown way out of proportion. You have to look for them in order to find them, and even then, I couldn't find them in that video. And obviously, if there was a significant amount of gamers who would not buy a game that had a female protagonist for that reason, they would not make games with female protagonists because this is a money-making business.
They worked on the game and most certainly on Aloy to make a memorable and strong character who can be on the same level as other Sony main characters like Nathan Drake or Joel, for example. Aloy is portrayed as an incredibly strong and confident character. She leads her people and encourages them to go to war to fight against the oppression of the others. She's the leader of a revolution that may change their lives.
I mean, that's all well and good, don't get me wrong, but what part of all that makes her a feminist?
From all what we've seen so far, I associate her with being a heroine that isn't afraid to fight for what she believes in. She's not displayed as being weak or the one who needs to be saved.
Well, I mean, yeah, that wouldn't make any gameplay sense. If she was weak and she constantly needed to be saved, she wouldn't be the protagonist. That wouldn't be a very fun game to play. And if Aloy was a male, I don't know what's a metal pun for a name. Steel, iron, Byron, like iron. Yeah, see, I can do it too. Then he would have the same traits. It has nothing to do with her gender. Her femininity does not instill in her these values and traits.
Aloy seems to be the hero the gaming industry needs.
But there's nothing special about her. I mean, she's a good, strong protagonist, but we have millions of those. I mean, what about her, based on those things that you've said, makes her stand out from countless other characters? Or is the only reason you're saying that because of the part of her that happens to make her a woman? Is that it?
From this point of view, I think that Aloy is a perfect example for a feminist character.
So why would Lara Croft not be one?
Feminism doesn't want to make women superior to men or the other way around.
Yes, it does. Look, we're just gonna have to be frank. Yes, it does. Maybe there was a time that was different, and maybe there was a time feminism was actually needed in society. Absolutely. But that time is gone. Current modern-day feminism is awful. It is terrible. It is absolutely a supremacy movement for the benefit of females. And I'm certain you're well-meaning. I'm certain most of them are. They don't do it with malice in their hearts. But that's the way it's portrayed, and those are the actions that they take.
I don't think that Aloy will stand in the shadows of the generic male lead characters we have nowadays.
But if Aloy was Byron, then he would. If Aloy was Byron, then there would be very little to separate him from all of the other male action heroes that we see all the time. You're only giving credence to Aloy because she has a vagina. You're basically saying Aloy is a strong feminist character that the gaming industry needs because she's a woman who displays traits that we see all the time in protagonists.
So, what do you think of Aloy?
I don't know.
Do you like the way she's portrayed in the game?
Yeah, sure.
What are your thoughts?
Well, Keemstar follows me on Twitter, apparently. I don't know what to think about that.
Please let me know in the comments,
Nah, this'll suffice.
because I'm personally very interested in this topic. I would like to know whether you agree or disagree with me.
Well, if you're blocking notifications from people who aren't your friends on YouTube, how interested are you really in the topic? I don't encourage people to go to this video and leave comments, especially if they're harassing or if they're abusive or if you're name-calling, but I think you could learn a lot about this person's personality by the way that they reply to the comments that are already on this video. I think it's worth a look.
If you don't mind, please also like this video and subscribe to my channel to see more videos in the future. Thank you so much for watching and see you next time. Bye bye!